Hey guys, it's Steve here from CG Geek, back with part 6 of our forest tutorial. This should be our final tutorial in this series on creating a forest in Blender. This part we will be doing rendering. We'll be doing rendering, color grading, and compositing. So fun stuff. You got lots to be excited for. So let's get right into it. To start off, I'm pretty much going to start off just adjusting my render settings and getting a good render. So I'm going to go ahead and go for a 1280 by 720p render, small HD. And then I'll scroll down. You want to make sure your transparency samples are up quite a bit, something like 48 and a maximum here, because you have lots of alpha masked textures out there. And then you just want to turn your performance to be something like 32 if you're rendering with your CPU like I am. So with that done, I'll turn my samples just to something like 50, so we don't take forever, but you can get an idea of what she's looking like. Then I'll hit F12 and let my scene render. So I'll quick speed this up a little bit so you guys can see what's happening, but it happens like that. Alright, so a scene started rendering here and it's looking okay, but there's a few things that I quick forgot to mention, so we gotta quick show you those now. First of all, it looks like our grass I accidentally turned down or off. Let me just quick check that. My grass settings here. Oh yeah, I turned the settings way down, and I want to turn them up. So I'm just going to crank that up another 0. So we have a lot of grass. And the other thing was the camera. I forgot to mention with the camera, you want to give it a little depth of field. Nothing too crazy, but a little depth of field gives it some realism. So I'm going to turn on limits here so we can see where the camera should be focused. And I'm just going to take the distance up to about that tree there. So right around there. And then I'll give it a f-stop aperture type here, and then I'll change that to just being something like a 2. Alright, cool. Now if I quick take a look at what that render is coming out, it's looking pretty decent. So with that, it should look quite a bit better now. So I think I should be good to go. Alright. One other thing I'm noticing that I might want to tweak a little bit is the size of those trees in the background here. Let me turn them on for you. Might be a little small, and I think if I crank the size up a little bit, it would be a little better. So go ahead and make that 0.5. Whoops, these are the wrong settings. I have to click on that layer before I can adjust it. Alright. So the size, 0.6 right now, we'll go 0.7. Make them a little bit bigger. We can give them a little bit more random size too, why not? Maybe 0.75. Cool. That might be a little too much, but that should do it. So I can turn those off, go back to camera view, and we should be able to render now with better results. Alright, so there's a full render, and it's not looking too bad. Obviously, there's a few issues that could be fixed, and I might do that in another render. But for now, I'm going to get on with the compositing, and we'll finish up the scene and then maybe make a few tweaks at the end. But it's looking okay for now, and we can go ahead and move forward with this. So this took about 6 minutes to render. You can see up here in the corner. And first off, I want to get some color correcting done. And for this project, I actually did most of the color correcting right in the scene settings here. So you just go to color management. I'll change the view from default over to film, because I like the way the film looks. And then I need to crank the exposure up to be about something like a 0.75. It's a little brighter exposure. Then everything else in the shadows is still kind of dark, so you want to take the gamma up to about a 1.5, I'm sorry. Something like that brings out the darkness a little more. And a few things are still a little out of whack. I think I want to put a few more little trees over here. I don't like seeing so much over there. But I'm getting sidetracked. So back to the matter. These shadows are a little dark, so I might still, let me see, brightening like this or brightening this. Well, I might just have to brighten that wood texture up a little bit too. I think the wood texture in general is a little dark, but that's okay. We can tweak that. I'm just going to go down to use curves now. Here I can kind of adjust the shadows and highlights and stuff like that. So I'm going to start by kind of going to the red values here and giving it just a little more red. So pulling it up a little bit there, you can see if I check that on and off, it gives a little bit more of a red hue. and that's kind of cool. We might leave that for now. Then I'll go to the green and kind of do the same thing. I want to make the greens pop a little bit more there. So you can see by adjusting that, I get a little bit more of that. And that's kind of good. Just a little bit more. Get until I get something I like right around there. And the same with the blues. Adjusting it at the end here. Kind of pulling the blues up a little bit. And let's just kind of work that until we get something that we're kind of liking. It's a little bit dark still. Alright, that's a little better. I might have the reds a little too high there. Pull those down, just gotta find a nice middle ground. Somewhere around there is not too bad. And then we can go to the color itself and see if we can't brighten those shadows up a little bit. So brighten them up a little bit and then darken everything else. Let's just see if we can't kind of get that looking a little better. Alright. Somewhere around there. I'm thinking we'll have to tweak that that wood texture just a little bit, but that's looking okay. Right around there. And then pull this down a little bit. Alright, not too bad. I think I can delete that point there. Not too bad. So it's still a little reddish. I might want a little bit more blue. So pull the blues up just a little bit there. That's not too bad. And yeah, just kind of play around with these settings a little bit. But getting closer to what I want. Somewhere around there. The red might be a little high still. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Okay, so like I said, we'll tweak the wood texture a little bit brighter. But I think I can go ahead and move forward with this now. Maybe make this just a little brighter exposure. Okay. So we can move into the compositing. So in the compositing, what I'm going to be doing is kind of giving it a gradient effect across the whole scene and giving it some light rays. So the gradient effect is going to be giving it some of a kind of a bounce light, you could say, because I'm going to kind of be bouncing some of the red up, so the haze will be kind of reddish on bottom and then a little greenish and bluish on top, if that makes sense. So we're going to use kind of a fun technique that I kind of came up with myself for this that works pretty well. So let's switch to our compositor there and get started. So use nodes and backdrop. And then I can just go Control Shift, left click on that, and we have it showing up in the backdrop there. So what I'm going to start off by doing is, let me close that off there. What I'll start off by doing is adding in a mist node. Basically, a mist node, there is no such thing as a mist node, but it's a vector map value. And this kind of controls the depth of the image. So I can use the Z value for my render here and kind of control the amount of mist with it. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. I'm going to make a size that's very small, 0.003, and then you can kind of see the mist showing up there. I can kind of want to use the offset now to make it so it's not so much in the front here, but more in the back. So something like that is looking pretty good. And then I'm going to use the maximum so I don't have any values that are perfectly white. So just take that down. Whoops. You can't go below 0, but 0.01. That's a little too much. 0.02. Still too much. 0.4. Just kind of tweak this just till we get the white values down back there. There we go. Right around there. Alright, maybe 0.12. Maybe just a 0.1. There we go. That kind of works. 0.11. Might be perfect. Alright. So with that done, what I can do now is, this is too noisy to really work well. So what I need to do is drop a denoiser on it. So there's a filter that does just that. It's called despeckle. Where is it here? Trying to find it right there. Despeckle. And this will help just get rid of some of this noise that you get from this node. So I'm going to go to this and take the threshold way down. Somewhere around 0.1. And and then maybe just the neighbor a little bit. See if we can't help get rid of more of those. Right. It's not too bad. Getting a little better. Maybe go even smaller, 0.01. There we go. And that gets rid of all the noise. Can I go a little higher than that just so I don't lose too much detail? 0.04 seems to be about right. And we're ready to continue. So with this mist, what I want to do is use it to control the amount of light rays, basically. So I'm going to go ahead now and leave that and add in a new node, which is a mask. It's just a basic matte box mask. Okay, and if I go to this by Control-Shift, left-clicking, you can see it's a box. So I'm going to scale that box up along the x-axis here, and along the y a little bit, right here, and then this will control the up and down positioning of it. And I want it to be towards the bottom here, something like that. All right, now I want to blur this mask a lot, so it's a gradient across the scene. So to do that, I'm just going to go Filter, Blur. I'll go Fast Gaussian and Relative along the y, and then I'll take the y value just way up to really blur it across our image there. Cool. And you can kind of tweak it by dropping this up or down now. And drop it down a little bit more, and then blur it maybe a little bit more. Somewhere around 30 is good. And that looks about right. So then this can be what I use to color. So now that I have that, I think I can drop just a color ramp in here. Convert a color ramp. All right. So now I just want to kind of change the colors here. Let me click on that one more time so it's the image, not the alpha, to be the colors that I want in my scene. So I want this to be, like I said, a little red, a little reddish hued, something like that. And I want this black value to be kind of a bluish, greenish sky color. So kind of like that, maybe a little brighter, bluish, greenish. And then I can kind of control the amount by pulling that up. All right, so I have the colors that I want there, looking pretty good. Just a little less of that. Then I can add in more here if I want, like a little bit more blue or a little more green at the base here. Just kind of tweaking them like so. So that's working pretty well. Maybe blur this just a little bit more. Let me see what that looks like. If I blur this a little more, 35. Might be a little better. Maybe I can move it up just a little bit so it's a little higher there as well. But that's about what I want. All right, maybe make this red a little bit more actually red. Something like that. Right around there. All right, that's good. So now what I need to do is I have this and I have this. And I want this to look like this with just this coloring. So all I have to do is drop in a color mix, change it to multiply, make this value the bottom and this one the top. And you can see, bam, I have my coloring over my my fog. So there you go, you got your mist, your fog, whatever you want to call it, and your coloring on it. So that's cool, but there's one more thing that makes it even more cool, and that is adding the light rays. So I'll do that now, and that's going to be done using the filter sunbeams. So the sunbeams is a really cool node. It's relatively new, and you can basically blur your bright highlights into to like sunbeams. So I'll show you how to use it. I'm just going to drop in a filter or converter color ramp, grab the value from our image into there, and then plug that into the image there. I want to make our image here to be a bit more black. All right, so we're just kind of getting the highlights out of the top of our scene there. So something like that is going to be about right, just so the highlights are kind of up there. And then I'm going to go to my sunbeams node here and give it a ray length of about 0.3. And you can see it's giving you those like hyperspace, Star Wars hyperspeed buzz, lines or whatever you want to call them. That's because it's centered in the center right now with 0.5 and 0.5. But I want it to be up. So I'm going to give it a 0.9 so it puts it up higher. And then I'll give it a whole 1 actually. And so that's at the top. So I want it to be even above the top a bit more. So I'll give it about 0.13. Whoops. 1.3, I'm sorry. and then kind of over to the left here. So I'll give this about a 0.9 value. And you can see your sun rays are kind of coming through over there. That might be a little too far over there. Maybe 0.8 would be better. All right. You can kind of adjust the length of these as well. Maybe you're not happy with the length or something. 0.4. All right. And you can also adjust the amount here of light rays that you'll really get coming through. So something like that is pretty cool looking. Now the trick is to just take this and put it over the top of this. And to do that, we're just going to go color mix. We'll put it over the top of our fog here before the color's added to it. Change it to screen and drop it in the bottom. It's as simple as that. If we go to our node here now, we got our light rays coming through. And they look pretty nice. Might be a little too intense there. Alright, something like that. And it's looking pretty sweet. One thing you can do to kind of pop the light rays a little bit more is just drop a color, filter, so not color, but converter math. Drop it in there and change it to multiply. And then if you increase this value, it kind of makes the rays really pop. So you might want to play with that a little bit. But I think that's pretty good. Take that down a little bit there. All right. So that's looking like that now. Now that's all fine and dandy. And now all we need to do to add it to our original image is drop in a color mix and an add node. And then this is when the magic happens. As soon as you drop this on, you get this. And you can see it brightens your scene a bit too. And this is what we had in the beginning. This is what we have with all of our color added on top of it. So it's pretty cool. You don't want to go over the top with it. You can't go too crazy. I might raise this sun rays up just a little bit higher. I'm not really happy with those being so harsh either. So what you can do to fix that is just drop in a color blur, filter blur. There we go. Change it to fast Gaussian, relative, I don't know why, it doesn't matter. Then I'll go 0.5, 0.5. So now these rays aren't so harsh looking and it's a little bit more appeasing to the eye. So that's how you do that. And then of course you can always tweak how much the red is coming through, how much the green is coming through, and get some different results. Bring the red up a little higher, bring it down a little bit more, whatever you want for your scene. But that's pretty good right around there. Now I don't want to add this with a whole one. I'll take it down just a little bit, 0.8. But there you go. And then if you want more rays, you can kind of crank that up more and get more rays. So that's looking pretty good. And with that done, we might want to kind of change our color overall over here now. You can see maybe some areas are a little bit too red for your liking. So you can take the red values down now. Maybe increase the overall blue values a little bit. Something around there. Same with the green. You might give it a little more green. But I'm starting to like the way the colors are coming together. So it's pretty cool. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied. Getting close to finishing, actually, so getting exciting. I go right around there. You don't want to take the reds out of it too much, but it can be a little touchy. All right. Now the overall colors also might need a little touching up. Something like, right around there is about right. Might be just a little overly saturated. And I also might want just a little bit more blue. This doesn't really make too much change over there. It's more down here that you see the most difference. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. Pretty good, pretty good. I think I've said that like 82 times now, so I apologize. You're probably getting mad at me. Like, alright, I get it. You like the way it looks. Stop saying that. But it does. It's looking pretty good. So, without saying that one more time, I'll just do a few more tweaks to the scene, and we'll call it good. You could always add like a vignette around it as well. Vignettes are kind of cool. But I'm pretty happy with that. So, what I want to quick change now is just some of the lighting on the trees here, and also maybe give it a little bit more light rays. The light rays are just a little dim. Not seeing quite as much of them as I'd really like. I think bringing this down a little bit would help. Something like that. Just kind of messing around with the settings there will sometimes give you more or less light rays. So here's our light rays being multiplied and then being put on. So they're a little bit dim. Brighten them up a little bit with this multiply node. There we go. Shining nice and bright. Then being added on. Cool. You can maybe taking me more. Maybe even more. And then you could also make them a little bit longer if you wanted. So they shine through a little further. Alright, so that's looking pretty. I'm not going to say it, but it's looking pretty. Alright, so let's go ahead and just fix this bark and move a few trees around a little bit to fill in those gaps. And we'll call it a scene. Like I said, it might be a little overly saturated. Instead of messing with these though, you could always just drop in a color balance node. Or, not a color balance, I'm sorry, not a color balance. A color RGB hue saturation node. Let me see, where is that? Color hue saturation. I've added like a zillion of these. I'm just messing up now. So yeah, you could do that and take the saturation down just a little bit if it was looking a little oversaturated to your eyes. Alright. So let's fix that bark texture and those trees, and we're good. So, back in 3D view now, I want a little bit more trees over here. So I was going to go to my particle settings, my trees, and change the vertex group here into vertex groups for the trees to put a few more over there. So weight paint, and this is paint some over there. Make sure it's set to add. And then hit F, give myself a little bigger of a brush, put a few of them over there. Now, the one thing I didn't really like is how I couldn't really see any trees over here. So maybe I need to just add a few more. I can grab this one, duplicate it, kind of put it over here. So we have a little bit bigger trees over here. Yeah, that's kind of a good spot for one. Maybe just back a little further. And maybe make this one a little bit bigger. Come in a little closer with this one. So she shows up a little bit better. Right there. This one I think could come in a little bit more too. Just a little far back there. Oops, don't move that at all. Alright. So that should be a bit better. Bring this one in a little tighter. And then the bark textures were a little dark, so I can brighten those up by just going to my node editor and choosing, let me see here. Do I have a hue saturation? Yes, I do. Just take the value up a little bit on them. If I go rendered, just to check, make sure everything is good. That's looking pretty good. Take the value up maybe one more notch. And we can call that about good. Something like that. The branch material we might want to brighten up a little bit too, because these trees and stuff use that material as well. So you can go here and just brighten that up a little bit too, if you thought it was too dark. This one as well. Where do we have the hue saturation? Oh, that's the leaves. There we go. Right there. So that's gonna about do it. Let me think. One more thing before I do my final render would be, oh, maybe don't have anything else to do. I was just gonna tweak the particles a little bit, I think. Give it a little bit more leaves, because you can never go wrong with more leaves. And maybe make the size of them just a tad smaller, because I added more of them. And maybe add just a few more trees as well, because I added more over there. So we can go 520. Turn those on just to make sure they're kind of laying out right. Alright, they look about good. Maybe this tree's too far back here too. Just bring them in a little tighter. Right around there. Scale up a little bit. Cool. So let's give her a final render, and I'll jump back with you guys once that's done, and we can kind of check out how she's looking. Yeah, let's do it. And there we go. So it's looking good. The shadows might be a little bit greenish, so maybe you'd want to tweak that a little bit more in your green settings if you weren't happy with that. but it's not too bad. And I'm pretty happy with it, I must say. Okay, so that's about it. The last thing I would do is add just a little bit of glows to the lights here. We got the rays, but we don't really have much glow. So to do that, I would go to Compositing and do a little bit of glows. So to do that, it's just, I'm going to use just a basic glare node. Color, filter, glare. And use fog glow. Give it kind of a foggy looking glow. I might increase the amount of this add a little bit too. Just give it a little more light rays in there, because it's cool. Why not? So then on the glare here, I'm just going to go to it, and I like to turn the mix on 1, so I can see exactly what it's adding. It's just a little bit being added right now, so I'm going to turn the threshold way down. So I get some of that sky. There we go. That sky giving some glows. Cool, that's about good. And make the size all the way large and see what that's looking like now. Alright, take the mix down to 0 again, so it's mixed, and then there you go. You got some nice glows up there. This is before, and this is after. You get those kind of glows showing up in there. So it looks nice. So that's going to about do it. Last thing is, if you want to still tweak colors and you don't want to have to re-render, what you can do is use the color correction node right there. Drop that in there, and you can adjust a lot of things with this, like the shadows and whatnot. So I could go to the shadows down here and say, oh, I need to lift them up a little bit. So just give them a little bit of a lift here, and you can see, ooh, it does a lot. So I don't really want to do that much. Maybe just a tad there. Take that back down. And maybe just give them a little bit of gamma, something like that, in the shadows. Brighten them up just a little bit, so it looks a little bit better. So that's gonna do it, guys. Hope you've had fun following along throughout this tutorial series. It's been fun, and I hope you had a good time. Let me just quick show you guys how to save your image now. You just connect your final node to the composite node. Then it'll show up down here if you switch to your rendered results in your UV image editor. Just start typing rendered result, and you get that right there. You get your final scene right there. So it looks pretty nice, and you can go, okay, I'm happy with it. Image, save as image, and then just save it as your final. Cool. Save it to your desktop, and then go post it in the comments so I can see it and like it, and yeah, everyone can see it. And I love it when you guys share your results in the comments. So that's awesome. So I hope you guys had fun and enjoyed something, learned something, and had a good time. That's it from me, and I'll see you guys in my next tutorial. Bye-bye.